I had sent me an email with some questions about GL coding related to the WIP entry that is done at the end of the month.
Okay.
It was one of Jerry's pending items, and so he had two, and he's just giving us the status on both.
But can we all see that so that we're all on the same page?
I guess so. I'm not really sure that, I think dealing with the question of the chart of accounts is something that you and I need to work on. I think that the debits and credits of the WIP journal entry probably are not all that important to talk about, although I'm happy to do it.
No, I just said, can you share it? You don't have to talk about it.
Sure, I can certainly forward that to the parties involved.
Yeah, just
We can see the flow.
to the general group that we normally that you normally send the emails to, and then we can all just review it just in case there's any input that we might have. And then Don, just so you know, we were talking just before you jumped on. He was giving us an update on the chart of accounts and that he's made good progress there. And I asked him if he could then maybe once that he has that for the two of you to review together, so that you guys are kind of all on the same page before sending it over to us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not going to be the only one reviewing it. I mean, I think we all need internally here to make sure that we all agree.
Cool. I think that sounds good.
Is Greg coming to this meeting today or not?
I wasn't sure what his status was. I know we're really in need of him here for a few things, and we felt bad that he was on vacation, so we tried to leave him go. But
he said
happening.
in his at the end of last week's call that he expected to be on this call, but I'm not sure like if today was his travel day or today was his like back home day but I would.
No, he was supposed to still be here because we were supposed to have dinner tonight, I think, but I haven't heard from him since he's been on his cruise.
Yeah,
I'm going to text him and see if we hear from him.
you were supposed to go out with him tonight, right, Peter?
That was last week.
Yeah, that was the plan.
Tonight?
It was going to be tonight, and I haven't heard back from him since he was on the boat between last week and this week.
Oh, I wonder if he has a bowl on. He was so paranoid about going.
They seemed really excited about it. It sounded like it was going to be a lot of fun. It was one of those cruises with lots of rock and roll bands on it. And
yeah, the '80s one. He goes on it every year.
Maybe he was like hasn't recovered from the cruise yet, and he's still sleeping. I don't know.
Or recovering. Too much kombucha. Exactly.
I know. Someone did hear from him. We emailed him last night about something that went wrong, and his answer was, "I don't know," and that's not normal. His response. So he's just trying to lay low.
He did make a comment in GLIP when one of the times that Cy was going in to the staging server, letting him know that he was going in, and he did reply back to that. Okay, so it just may be he was in the middle of the cruise now towards the end where things were kind of rocking and rolling, and so why don't we go ahead and get started and begin with a little bit of review. I think Peter's agenda, if you want to bring that up, Peter, begins with reviewing how this week has gone regarding any of the testing that you guys may have undertaken.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So can everyone see my screen? So this is the agenda for. Okay, yeah. So we've been doing internal testing through a couple bugs that we uncovered that are being fixed. We've updated the Google Sheet with all the sort of testing steps that have been going on, and so that's still moving forward. But basically everything's working the way we want it to, so that's all good. then I sort of have that. We talked about chart of accounts, so thanks, Jerry, for updating us on that. Last week we talked about how in Greg's system there's the customer list and the vendor list, and that they were different. And on Kiva's side, we only have the contacts. We had addressed that in the initial syncing of contacts between the two systems. So that's not something we have to add to what we were doing. That was already taken care of initially. So that
Okay.
that's was just part of the initial contact sync. We are just wrapping up that preview thing we talked about last week on the accounting children before posting that. So that's we focused first on commissions this week and got that working, and I'm going to show you a video on that. But then we're going to wrap up the accounting children preview piece, and we'll be able to see that next week. So that's moving along. Jerry got his reply to Cy, which we talked about, and then we can jump right into looking at these commission videos.
Peter, before you do that, Don, were you guys able to work with the testing, do any of the testing for the PO process this week?
No, we were not. We didn't even really go much over that with anybody here. No, Tom, a little bit, but we didn't really go through a lot of that process.
Okay.
And I don't know how much we have in there for testing.
Well, remember, we created a video that
Right.
Greg uploaded that you guys were just going to basically look at that, and then just there wasn't a lot to that process, but
Right.
I think you guys were just going to kind of log in and verify that part worked according to what you
Maybe I
expected.
back on billing, and I didn't pursue it on the PO side. Tom and I will work on that. We're in the middle. We've been discovering some other problems we've been having with freight. So, okay. So I will work with that with Tom, because Tom and I are pretty much the only ones that work on that.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure that,
I think I forgot, because we were just waiting. We had invoice issues, and I was waiting to hear back on that. So I just probably didn't pursue the PO side.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let me get to the videos here, so we can work on that. One second. Videos. All right.
So you want to set?
Okay. So
yeah, go ahead.
all right. So let me just set the context for where we are. This is the invoice summary screen. So this is where this sort of like starts from. So the first thing we do is we're going to go take a look at what's the commission info on this particular invoice. Well, the way you find that out is you click on the commission info button or header, and you can see from what the information from Greg's system that was passed over that says, oh, who's the salesperson, what's the commissionable amount, what's the commission rate, and what's the commission going to be once this thing is paid in full. And you can see that amount is different from the invoice amount, because we're obviously not taking, we're going to take the freight off of that invoice because we don't pay commission on freight, right?
Right.
Right. Now, is this going to be, this is not a known field across the board for everybody in accounting?
No, all of this commission stuff is happening automatically based on however the job was set up, or whatever rates you have for the salesperson.
Don, are you asking the question of whether this is visible to everybody?
That is correct, Mark, because this is not something that everybody knows.
So you want to hide this from certain folks?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so.
Because it's
all right.
payroll related stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So we just want to then establish which permission group gets to see this info.
Because that's completely controllable, Don. So we can hide and or expose whatever portions need to based on a permission set for each individual within, well, that has access to the system.
Okay.
Right.
Perfect. I just want to make sure that was noted.
Absolutely.
Do
Absolutely.
you ever have multiple commissions on a job, or is it always a one-to-one relationship?
It's usually just one. There's, in conversation and looking in the future, this is going to be helpful if we can turn it off on a specific job, or, lower it, on a specific job. And I think it would come from higher up. It wouldn't be on a CSR level, but it's definitely an improvement from what we were able to do before. It was hard coded, so it's nice to be able to do those.
So there's no sales manager who's managing all the salespeople who gets a commission on everything they do? There's no structure like that?
We don't have overrides. That's what you were referring to. No, we don't have a tiered override system.
All right.
No, we have the capabilities, but we've never used it.
All right, because we had to do a lot, this other printing company we're working with.
Sure.
They have.
And it should work that way, actually. If you're using on gross margins, if you're using a different system than we are, it happens a lot. But unfortunately, we're not that advanced to be able to do that.
All right. Well, if you ever do get advanced, then you know that we can easily handle that.
Okay, right. That's why I'm looking down the road. I'm thinking, okay, if we get to this, it's very manageable.
Yeah.
And does the commission work the same in all your subsidiaries? Or do you call them subsidiaries, or do you call them divisions, or is it all just one company now?
We just acquisitions, we call them, because they're all still ours. But then now we have the Buffalo division. I guess that's what we would call that, or I would. It's fairly new to us, so I guess we all have our own name to it.
Yeah, and their commission structure is completely different than ours. There's a whole bunch of different calculations involved with theirs. So we're not contemplating that at this time. We'll deal with that when we're ready to deal with that.
All right. Well, that's what I was wondering, because usually each company has their own unique commission.
Yeah, they do have their unique things that are different than ours, but I think our intention at some point in time is to bring them onto our method. So the fact that they're different today doesn't mean that by the time we bring them over that they will be different.
Have we talked about whether there's a need to track all these things by separate profit centers so that you have different income statements for each division?
We have talked about it, but I don't know that we settled on it.
About that.
What I would say is within, I'm going to use the word company as opposed to division. As far as Knepper Press is concerned, which is the company we've been working on, it's all one company, and there's no divisions per se. There are departments. We've talked about that. But as far as the GL coding associated with Knepper Press, it all gets coded to the sales department, which is Department 910. So there's nothing complex about it in that sense.
So are you going to have a separate chart of accounts for each of these divisions, or are we going to have the same account numbers?
And hold on, this is important for me.
Okay.
I can't hear.
Okay, the core accounts will be the same in the different companies. I'm using that word intentionally because the first character of our GL chart of accounts is a company number. And Knepper is company one. And
Jerry, I really don't want to base it on GLs or company structure. I mean, it could be a division and have its own GL. Why do we have to have a GL different?
okay,
There's not the same things up in Buffalo as there is here. And FK Development doesn't have anything what we have.
I understand that. Just bear with me for a minute. Knepper Press in this configuration of the chart of accounts is company one. The Buffalo operation would be company two, and the core accounts would be the same. There might be a few additional GL accounts associated with Buffalo, but not many. And as far as FK Development, which is the real estate company, at the moment, we're doing our accounting for that in QuickBooks. You know, whether we want to bring that into KeyBiz or not, it was my intention to do that. And they would have some other accounts that would be different. And it would only be in there so we can do consolidated statements when we need to do it. At the moment, I'm doing consolidated statements in Excel. So I would say the core accounts in Buffalo and Pittsburgh will be very much the same. The real estate operation will have some different GL accounts. For example, we don't have real estate that we own on Knepper Press or on Dual, but FK owns real estate. So it's got different GL accounts associated with owning real estate. That's all.
So Jerry, could you envision then somewhere down the line, if SK Properties or whatever it's called was to come into KeyBiz, then that would be company three?
I was intending to put it more like company nine, because there may be
some space between for additional acquisitions.
Right, because we may have, I wanted to be able to have all of our printing operations in consecutive company order, so that if we wanted to be able to know what our total printing operations were, but with not including the real estate, we'd be able to run a report like that.
Yeah.
Didn't you also have another company in New York, in city area that you were also connecting to?
Yeah,
No,
CBN.
we only have the two companies that I mentioned. We purchased a customer list from an operation up in Buffalo separate from this, and that got folded into Knepper Press.
Yeah.
We only have one other entity opened. We've never opened up, we've never had manufacturers outside of buying acquisitions. This is the only second time we've ever bought the building along with the company and kept operations there.
All right, well, let me just respond to what Jerry said about having the prefix company one, company two. You know, we have a field called center ID, and then we have the GL account number. So we, you know, instead of hyphenating the account number, we can have the two fields, and then based on those two fields getting concatenated, then we can run the income statement. But I don't know if you want to double all of your chart of accounts by having company one, company two.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, what I would say is let's explore that once I send you the GL cross-reference table, and
Okay.
and if we need to reconceptualize that, we can.
Jerry, Ted needs to see this before it goes any further.
I agree with you.
Okay, so you're working on that now anyway. So right after when you finish that, Jerry, then you and Don and whomever else you need to can look at it. when you guys kind of settle in on what that needs to look like, then you can send it to us and we can kind of give feedback and take a look at it as well. But I think Alan's point is well taken in that you could have one chart of account structure, with the GLs being the same no matter what the entity is,
Right.
then have the separate field that identifies whether you have 1 or 20 different entities. By separating it out there and keeping one chart of account structure so you have consistency, it becomes very easy then to create all the reporting that you need, whether it be consolidated, month end, year end reporting, or individual. You can break it out much easier within the database, and then you have one structure, so you always know what each different GL is because it's the same for everything across the board.
Yes, I agree
Right.
with that.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Just from an income statement standpoint, in your system, it would process much easier than trying to reprogram everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next step will just be you guys will work on it from your end, send it to us, and then we'll kind of come up with an overall consensus and then move forward with it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Peter.
Okay, so in order for this commission's solution to work the right way, we're implementing the staff module of KeyViz so that we can keep track of what's happening with each salesperson. So let's go ahead and we'll just jump right over there. So give me 1 second. Okay, so here's the list of all the salespeople, right? And so then that'll basically, you just add the people that you need here, and then you can drill into each one, and when you do, you get the details about each salesperson.
Okay. Now,
Okay, so once you drill in here, what you get is let me let the video go a little bit here. Obviously, you get to see that there's this panel here, which is these are all the invoices that the salesperson has and the commission that they're going to earn when those invoices get paid.
yeah,
So this is the kind of like if I'm Dennis here, what's in my pipeline for money that I'm going to earn when my customers pay their bill.
okay,
And then
so,
over here on the right hand side of that, you get, oh, here's all the ones that I've already earned because the bill was paid, as well as what are the payments that were made to me. So that way you can, and then you have the math at the top that says this salesperson was paid this much money against earned commissions of this, and they're plus or minus on the long-term basis for the life of the data that's in the system.
okay.
And this
so
is also where you can add payments to what you've done with salespeople. When you pay commissions or when you pay a draw, etc., we right now have it set up manually to add those payments. Obviously, when we integrate the payroll into the overall system, we'll automate the addition of the draws to the staff people at that time. But in the beginning, to make your commission system functional, you have what's in the pipeline versus what's real, and you have a place to see that and have transparency on that.
Hold on a second, Peter. Go ahead. You had a question, Jerry.
Yeah, I've got several.
Okay.
First of all, let me ask this question. We have at Knepper Press at this time over 190 employees, but only maybe 17 salespersons. So in your staff module, are you anticipating having only sales staff in there, or are you anticipating having the entire roster of employees?
Well, it really depends on what you want to, how you want to utilize that module, this is one aspect of what this module can do, which is help us control and identify and have a dashboard for commissions. But there are other things that are there. This is just the reason why we're showing you here is because it's the context is commissions.
Okay, it's fine. It was an inquiry.
Well, it's up to you, Jerry. We haven't really discussed this. I mean, generally speaking, the staff area is used for the users of KeyBiz or the accounting users, and the sales reps are not going to be users in this system. But
That's correct. They will not.
But since they're involved in commissions, then they would be entered as non-KeyBiz users in the system. But I don't think you have to do all 190 unless
employee ID, right?
If you want to have eventually keep track of 190 people using this HR type module, then we can expand it. But that wasn't part of the original scope.
Right, and that's fine, because I had not really expected to do that. I'm just, since you got into the staffing module, that was a question that was needed to be answered. Now, on the sales staff only, we'll call it 17 people or 20 people, whatever the number happens to be. Over time, obviously, at the beginning of 2020, there are going to be amounts invoiced from 2019 that will be paid in 2020 that would not necessarily have been, and probably wouldn't have been, included in the receivable database because it would have preceded December 31st, although if we were going to, we have to sort of decide what the cutoff is going to be related.
We're going to import the AR.
Right. The question is,
like
are we loading in AR as of December 31st of 19? Or if our transition date for conversation purposes is March 31st, are we going to be loading in receivables as of March 31st?
We already talked about this, but we're going to do it March 31st. We're going to stop. Say April 1st, we're going to stop working in FileMaker for accounting. We're going to stop working in Monarch. Load in the trial balance and all of that like we did, the AR, the AP, then mirror in both systems, finish March out and see what's off on both sides. And then go into April and hopefully, finish it off and hopefully come up with, a matching number and then go live.
Right. So it's obviously, Jerry, at some point when we go live with this, we'll make sure that we have a correct starting balance. And what I'm going to show you next is how you add payments. So obviously, we can cheat the add payment section to get the balance to be what it needs to be for whenever we start.
But there's partial payment.
Right.
Well,
this
paid in full is paid in full. So if there's a partial balance left on an invoice, that's all we're going to put in anyway. So it doesn't know that there was an original amount. We'll just have to work through that process of what's partial, but we did the same thing in Monarch.
I see.
Okay,
right.
so
now I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole section you have on the screen about the amounts paid versus the commission and the balance. Now, the amounts paid, I believe you're thinking about what we refer to as the draw. So, and you said that you would pull that from the payroll system. Did I hear you correct?
Yeah, when we integrate payroll, we'll do that. But for right now, they need to be manually added.
Okay.
I mean, right. So this is kind of 1.0 on the commission system here, making sure that it's going to give you the answer that you need. And then obviously, as we integrate the other pieces, we're going to automate whatever we can.
No, I
now,
think.
Go ahead.
No, it's not based on his draw. This is on a job level. This
No,
should
because
all be on a job level.
On the right-hand side here, you'll see in a second. We haven't finished watching the movie, so I don't want to give away the story. But let's do that. So what happens is next is you can apply payments to a salesperson. So let's say that you're going to pay so-and-so a draw. So you go ahead and you put in the amount that you're going to pay this person. And nothing's happened yet, but you're giving them money to survive. And so that gets added to their ledger. And now what happens is you'll see their balance in a second. Now they owe you money, or now they're negative because they have been paid more money than the commissions that they earned. And so that's you're going to be able to keep track of that in real time. So when you give people a draw, you can put it there, and then you'll see, oh, gee, they're behind and they need to sell some stuff to try to catch up, right?
Okay.
And then what happens next is, oh, great news, one of the customers is going to pay the bill. And so when that happens, we go through the process of receiving that money from the accounts receivable system. And when that money is marked as paid, automatically what we're going to do is update the paid panel of the staffing section with what their current balance is because that bill got paid. So that's what's happening right now. So we're selecting the invoice that we're going to pay. It gets paid. The money we're going to receive.
This is not automated?
This is just someone's got it in AR has got to receive the money. So somebody at the same time receiving the money.
Yeah, we're just showing you the process that's happening that will be automating the commission part that when you go back over, you're going to see that that's already going to be in there because it's automated.
Right. So far, I mean, obviously, when we putting together our testing environment, we have to do all the steps. Somebody's going to go through AR and go do this and apply the money to the invoice. And when that's finished, what's going to happen is the salesperson's ledger, for lack of a better description, is going to reflect the fact that that money has been paid by the customer. So then their balance with the company will change, which will happen right now.
And there's no limitations on how big this can be, because it can be pretty large for some of our reps.
I think it's millions of records, probably.
Okay.
So I think you're okay.
Do you mean
so you can see?
You mean the dollar amount, not the records, right?
No, the record.
Okay.
I just know we came across with Greg's system of not having enough record space, so No,
it's you have no. I don't think there's any problem with the number of records. So now you can see here.
Also, we can archive if you need to. So if after you do a couple years, sometimes we, just create an archive file which is on the server, so you can always go back a couple years if you need to, and an archive file if you want to.
Okay.
But I had another question here. On this particular first screen you showed, you had a commission of 5%, and you have the commission there is 7%, and then you're duplicating the same field over here. On the left, it says commission percentage. Do you ever vary the commission by a job depending upon the expenses on the job or profit margin on the job? Does commission ever vary?
Not at this time, but I do foresee something you know, in the near future as changing some of the structure. So the flexibility would be warranted, you know, appreciated that we can actually do that later.
Right. This rate, this commission rate here, this 7% is the default rate for that salesperson. The rate that came over on the job that we used it for our video, that was a lower rate that came from Greg's system. So that's an example where the standard rate for this guy was less for a particular invoice because it was set that way at the job level.
Okay.
It does vary then. It can vary?
It can. And it did in our example case, which just so we could demonstrate that capability.
And the only expense that's excluded from the commission is freight. Otherwise, it's based on gross.
Postage,
Postage and freight.
and also if there's a independent contractor commission, that's excluded also.
What do you mean
Okay.
independent contractor?
In some cases, we have a broker involved, and the broker may get a fee on that. And the customer gets invoiced for that broker fee, but I don't believe that is, I think that is not included in the number that is subject to commission.
All right, so Peter, what I would like to see on that commission pop-up is more of a full accounting so that you have an overview on understanding that figure of why you're basing, how you came to that figure of what the commission is based on. You have the field commission on, but there's no accounting.
So you want to, like if I hover over a particular invoice here, you want to have a pop-up for the calculation.
Well, there, but you know, I wanted on that pop-up you had over on the invoice. So on the job.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
But you know, if someone's going to look in there, that's the question they're going to ask. Well, is this right? That commission on figure, how did they arrive at that? So there needs to be some easy way for them so they don't have to go elsewhere to try to figure it out.
Okay.
But I don't know how the figure that Jerry just mentioned, if we have that automated to that's going to be brought in over from Greg's system, is that, or does that have to be entered here?
That's it. Well, right now, I'm sure we're flagging the postage and freight GLs for exclusion from commission. We just have to exclude that GL as well in the same scripting to take it out of the commissionable sales. So we just have to make sure that whenever there is that situation occurring, that it's properly coded with its GL number, so we can exclude that from the calculation.
But where's the data going to come from this independent contractor fee that he just mentioned? How's that going to be?
It's going to have to come from the billing fee.
It would be on the invoice itself. In fact, you know, part of where this all relates to is in a prior conversation, I mentioned something about something I call sales reporting. And this field you're calling commission on is basically the number we would use for sales reporting. And trying to make the distinction between the amount invoiced versus the net sales. And actually, if you look at any of our invoices that have these multiple items on them, we actually have a subtotal on the invoice that says net sales.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's important. I think we need, I mean, the subtotal in our figure is supposed to be the, before all the other things, and then you have all the other things. So over on the right where it says total tax, shipping, are they, is postage also needed over there to come up with the net sales to show what the postage figure is and
No, postage should be, is not part of net sales.
Right,
But
so you
postage
want
should be over
you wanna
there
have
on a line item, so it knows that there is postage over there. You don't have to look at the whole invoice to see if, oh, was any of this coded correctly behind the scenes, even though it said postage, but if it doesn't show in a postage bucket over there, it's, can get lost.
So are you saying
we have a section? We have a section that's already been coded for posting, right, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. What we need to, what I'm hearing people say is in this invoice data section, we need to edit that to have a net sales number that you guys are used to looking at on all these invoices,
Yes.
which is
Right.
the number inclusive of postage, freight, and sounds like these third-party consultants or other people. You're not counting those as sales either.
You could just call
Right.
it broker commission. Maybe that's the best word.
Okay, so we need to edit this invoice data panel to highlight those things for you guys, since that's what you're looking for. And
Right.
obviously we're based the commission on that same number, which right now we're in the interim calling it commission on, which should just say net sales. But so we'll change that. But we need to update that panel to show net sales.
Are you
Yes.
saying, Don, that net sales includes postage or doesn't include postage?
Does not.
Does not.
See, that's the caveat here, is that you were saying postage comes off of that commission on figure, and it's not. Don is saying that's separated out, so you have to have a separate field for the postage or a separate pop-up for that.
Right, well, you can see the commission on number is lower than the invoice. We're already pulling out the postage. But what we're not doing is we're not highlighting the net sales number in the invoice data panel so that it's clear what the actual sales you guys count as sales is in this particular case.
And
My
you're
point
going
is
to
that
need that number for sales reporting anyway. So it's definitely valuable to have it specifically identified.
Go ahead, Al.
I mean, the point is, it's that net sales is different than the commission on field. Since the net sales does include postage and commission on doesn't.
No, net
Or
sales
the other way
is
around.
not.
The other way around.
Net sales and commission on should be the same number.
Correct.
Okay, but Don is saying that, I thought I heard Don saying commission, net sales doesn't include postage.
Right, because postage is not included in net sales and it's not included in commission on. It's included on the invoice, but not in net sales. Because
Okay.
the invoice is the sum of net sales plus freight, plus postage, plus broker fees. Then you have a total over the invoice. But
Okay. All right.
I
would like to
find
see
an
all this.
invoice that I can send for a sample of what ours looks like now, just so someone has a visual.
That would be
Okay.
I'll send that over.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so these brokerage fees are going to get posted to the GL, right?
yes,
As a separate thing. And do we need to have a report that accumulates the brokerage fees in addition to the sales commission fees, or are they going to be on the sales commission report?
it should not be part of the sales commission report, no.
So we need a separate report for brokerage.
It should be, you think of it this way, the postage is a pass-through because you get the money from the customer to pay the postage and you have no net expense. The brokerage fee is the same thing. You bill the customer for the brokerage fee, you're going to pay the broker the fee, your net cost when all is said and done should be zero.
Right.
Okay, but I'm just asking if you need something to account. If the broker wants to have an accounting of the invoices and what their fee is, do you need to produce some kind of report to them?
Mark, we put it in AP right now. And there's not a lot of them. And what we do, there's probably less than a dozen for a year. And there's the same ones. And basically when their invoice is paid that they've done the broker work for, then we put it in for payment processing. So it's not a lot of movement.
Do you 1099 them?
Yes.
Could they potentially be treated like a purchase customer type of situation, where in their contacts you can flag which customers are theirs, or are they job specific or customer specific?
We don't have anything flagged right now, and they're usually job specific.
Okay.
We do have brokers, but we have them in as customers, so they're not getting commission on their stuff that we bill them for. It's basically because we're a commercial printer, and the commissions we're paying are for design work. So if a designer did some really good work for PPG that we built, and they didn't bill PPG direct, then we would actually send the designer their commission once PPG paid their bill. And that's
Okay.
not a lot. It's not a lot
So-
of them. I would say less than a dozen maybe less than 6. There's not that many.
So there's a couple general ledger accounts that you basically throw all these things into.
One general ledger, but a couple APs.
Right. So if we are pulling these out of the commission calculation based on the general ledger of whatever the category that is, then we'll be able to do that without a problem.
Yes. Yeah. There's not a lot of movement.
Do
Right.
the brokerage fee get paid upon the invoice being paid or upon the
Yes.
invoice being issued?
Yes, the same thing. The invoice has to be paid before it's due to the broker.
Okay, so when the invoice is paid, do you want an automation that goes over to AP and creates a payable to
That
them?
would be a good thing.
What?
Excuse me, that could be very helpful.
Yes,
Okay. So then
Okay.
you need to flag these people. We have a button in contacts on the, to check the box 1099, so that when you run your 1099 report, every payable, they'll show up on your 1099 report.
yes, it
Yes.
should.
Yes, that's very helpful.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll figure this piece out hopefully by next week.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So that's this first video. So
Can I just finish that thought for a second? So if you wanted that automation, these people who are sales commission, are they all internal people, or are they also sometimes contractors outside the company, the salespeople?
The commission, all this commission work that you've done are for employees of the company. As I said, we have 17 of them today, and all of them receive draws of some sort that need to be accounted for before we make our quarterly payment. Now that's one thing that I wanted to just clarify looking at this screen. This screen seems to be for a particular salesperson. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, Dennis,
but you're getting ahead of the movie again, Jerry. So the next movie is going to cover your question.
Okay.
Guess what? My movie went dead. I'm just relogging in. I can probably still hear you, right?
Yeah. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Don?
Yeah,
I can hear you. I just can't see anything.
all right, so let me just finish with Jerry. So Jerry, are you saying that you only have internal salespeople, you have no outside sales reps?
Except for the brokers that I just described.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, great.
No.
Okay. Let's move on to the next video here. Okay, this is the next video here. Let's get the audio down.
I hate to interrupt, but does it say I'm connected?
I see your name.
Yeah, where did I go?
I think sometimes you got to just hit that go to meeting icon again to get to toggle to the other screen. Sometimes
I
you'll
know.
lose.
There we are. Okay.
Okay, so this is the let's make sure. Oh, here we go. That's where I was. Okay, perfect.
Peter,
so this
can
is
you,
the
can you hold on just a
contact
sec-
list.
Peter, can you hold on just a second? Don, are you able to see it?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
just.
All right, so this other part is okay. We want to work with the purchase customer piece as well as the so that's the details on contacts, right? So let's go ahead and get started here. So when we drill in and hit the financial info piece here, this is for the purchase customer section, right?
Okay.
So here in this, we have a box on the left-hand side that I'm circling here, where you can assign purchase customers to somebody who you bought them from.
Yes.
And so by hitting the plus sign, you're adding people to that, and you get to this screen because this is the financial info tab of the contact, which is also where we can see the postage deposits, right?
All right.
And then underneath that middle section, we have the section where we can create the waterfall, if you will, or the layers of commission rates based on sales, right? So here we have from 0 to $1 million, the rate's 5.39, and then over $1 million, it changes to 4%.
Okay.
And then underneath that, we have the same structure as the salespeople, which are the deals that are in the pipeline relative, and then also the deals that actually got paid and whatever payments were made to this person who brought these customers.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have the same basic structure. And then as we add customers, what you'll see is the portals will end up becoming populated with the data from those customers. So let's go ahead and add some customers. So when you select a customer, you can just, there's a search box. And then based on the search box, you can pick who you want to put in there. And if you change your mind, you can click on the name again, and it will unhighlight it. And then that lets you edit that list. Once you choose somebody, then all the information about that customer will then be added to the list.
Okay.
Now I make a request on that customer search field.
Sure.
That the customer number be accessible?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So you can see the customer number?
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful.
And I'm hoping that we can import these lists, which would be the customer number driven list, because we're talking about, in some cases, hundreds of customers. I don't think thousands, but hundreds associated with each one of these kind of deals.
Yeah, that's always possible. We just have to set up for it. Because
No, Greg
ultimately,
inputted everything in his.
you're going to be able to just pull those records into the appropriate table. We just need to tee that up to make it easy.
Okay.
I have a question here. What is assign customers to this purchase customer? What does that mean?
Okay, so let's say that Knepper decides to buy another printer, and they're just going to buy the customer list, and they have 5 customers that are big customers, and the guy's an old guy, and he wants to retire, and Knepper says, "Okay, I'll take over your customers." We're not sure how valuable they are, so we're going to do an earn-out deal. So we'll give you a certain percentage of whatever the future is up to a certain point, and then after that, you're done.
That's
Then they would add that guy, old guy, to the contact list, and then they would add into the assigned customers box, old guy's customer 1 through 5. And then whenever old guy's customers pay their bill, then in the section on the right, on the bottom, old guy, Jerry and Don would know, hey, we got to pay old guy his commission because his people brought us business.
That's right.
That's the story. And then the deal point.
How old do they have to be? Is there like a threshold here, or?
No.
Company name.
You wouldn't qualify, Alan. You're too young.
We actually have a 90-year-old sales rep still working for us that we purchased him back in 2001.
Wow.
And it was his company, and it was another building we owned. That was our first acquisition we did, and he is still every day selling. 90.
You stop and think about it. If you've had the requirement of running your business all those years, which obviously everybody understands can wear you down, and you could sell that, cash out, and still have a nice little income from sales, but without all the hassle of running the business, that's a great deal.
And he doesn't even come in the office. He works from home.
Yep. He sounds like a broker, like he's brokering deals.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. If you would talk to him, he's sharp as a whip.
Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah,
there you
it's
go.
pretty cool. There's a big write-up in the paper about him. That's why it's actually hanging on the wall down the hall.
Okay, cool.
So the contact type that we have for those kind of guys, what are you calling them?
We still call him a sales rep because he's on payroll, but he gets a really small draw, and then he just gets commission on his customer base.
Okay,
But
so
he's still considered a sales rep.
all right, so okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah, so do we have the contact type set up as a?
Well, it's any contact can become a child of any other contact because it's just I think it's just a table that relates to itself.
Right, but in terms of our lists and sorting, we have customers, we have clients, we have vendors, we have manufacturers. I just want to, make sure we have a contact type for sales rep, that's all.
Alan, Greg's set up in the FileMaker side, and we do it a little bit different in the Monarch side. So we're going to have a little bit of a transition, I think, hurdle, in my opinion. And I'm just going to do this last TBN deal because we have 2 different structured-based purchases. He imported them both. This is the first acquisition we did. He imported them in his system, did not make them active until we started in the Monarch world, and then we go over and we make the customer active from his side. But he flagged them in his system in certain ways, kind of like you're doing here. on the acquisition side, naming them. But I'm going there. He flagged them. They're called subcategories. And then he has like he has 3 customers kind of set up within a customer. He has TBN, KPC, and Dole. If you had looked in the FileMaker world on the customer side, I think this is kind of what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how he has it structured already on his side, which is definitely unique to what we already have in Monarch. So we'll have to make that transition a little different, because we basically, for commission purposes in Monarch, are using solely sales reps' names, which I don't want to go too deep into this.
Well, this is not really commissions. This is if you do have a structured deal, which you said you do sometimes.
Right.
This is how you do that.
Right, and that's where he's putting it on his world, these KPC, TBNs, and the Doles. I'm just saying he doesn't have the same functions on his side as we have in Monarch to keep it straight.
Is he going to get a 1099 for his income? How does that work?
Who is?
The sales rep, these people who are on this type of a commission. Do they
No.
Are they stockholders, or are they, how are they classified?
It's a purchase agreement based on the customer list. Basically a contract.
Okay, but how do you report their income?
We give them a check, and they typically are bigger than just, they're incorporated. They're companies. They're not old people.
Okay, so you are paying to an incorporated company then?
Right, yes.
So is that 1099?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's a 1099 miscellaneous.
If they're incorporated, they don't qualify for a 1099.
But so, I mean, Jerry said it earlier, they are W-2 employees then.
No,
No.
we're blending apples and oranges here. So
We are blending apples and oranges.
The W-2 people are all the staff people. Now these are not those people. These are the purchase customer list and keeping track of those percentage of sales that you have to pay that company that you bought that list from. This
company.
Is
they're not old people.
So it's just a purchase agreement that it outlines what's going to happen, and this is a methodology to track that. And
that's right.
The tax reporting at the end of the year is based on that purchase agreement, not on an individual.
Right, and it comes with equipment, comes with assets. It doesn't all just come from, it's just a customer list. It's a pretty large agreement. It's not usually.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Right, it's probably millions of dollars.
I'm just trying to understand in terms of your GL and where this goes, and also for taxing purposes where this goes.
Right, all the questions are good. You just don't, because you're not familiar with all of it. It's probably a lot to intake.
They just write it off as an expense line item against their net income because it's a purchase cost of whatever assets that they bought. It's just it's a payment, like you were buying a car. It's just a payment. It's not a fixed. You're expensing it. Right, and then they have to on their books that they're going to have royalty income or whatever it is that they're going to call it that they got from Knepper for when they deposited that money. They're going to hit their sales account, and that goes to their bottom line. So, but they don't get a personal 1099 or W-2
as a contractor. They're not a contractor. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so in our reporting on our sales commission, we use sales rep as the contact type to find the people that we want to do sales commission. So I'm just trying to get clear. They're a different contact type than a sales rep if they're not. then there's somebody, they're not a vendor, they're not a sales rep, they're not a subcontractor, there's some other contact type that they are.
Right, and
Yeah,
that's pretty much how Greg coded it on his side. He coded it TBN, and then he tied the customer list associated with TBN, which is kind of like TBN would be the sales rep for reporting purposes.
Well, because your payment terms were similar to that of the salesperson, it kind of works on the same mechanism, because sounds like the deal you made with those people was, when we get paid, you get paid, and we're paying you this much. Similar to what you do with your salespeople, which happens to have the same deal, which is when we get paid, you get paid. And so you're just following the same, and so we're just basically leveraging off that you get paid, they get paid infrastructure for two different cases.
Right, and then Greg's system flag says TBN, which TBN would be the identifier.
What does TBN stand for?
That's the Knepper acquisition.
Buffalo News.
It's TBN Buffalo News. It's a news company that does printing, kind of like a newspaper.
Oh, I see.
Those are just the initials of whoever they bought. But it's in this case, we are associating the contact ID with the list in another field, so that we can identify them as children of that particular contact.
Yeah,
so we're
and that's going to be helpful because we have a lot of different sales reps in the Monarch world, which Greg does not have, but he has the identifier as the customer that the company we purchased instead of the sales rep. So in the commission structure, the identifier could be the primary, and then the customer could be secondary. It doesn't have to be on a sales rep level. And that actually would be more helpful, right, Jerry, to report off of the identifier TBN versus each individual rep?
It would be helpful. I've been using the salesperson code because that's what we decided to do, but
that's how Monarch can handle it.
So
yeah,
I have a suggestion.
It's cumbersome, and I will tell you, when I sent the file off to TBN, they found it very cumbersome.
All right, I have a suggestion. Since you can have more than TBN, you had KBC, you have several of these things. So these are sort of like what I would call affiliates. You get an affiliate commission. I don't know if affiliate exactly is the right word, but it's sort of like differentiates them from a sales rep.
Well, that's why we call this. Peter referred to this as purchased businesses, which is correct.
Right.
In other words, we bought a customer list. The calculation.
Right. That, yeah.
The calculation method is the same in the sense that we only pay it when the invoice is paid in full, but the organization that gets paid may not actually be a person that would get a 1099. It may be a corporation.
All right, I just want to find a word that you like, that has meaning, that you can put a bunch of these things under, that we can separate out from a sales commission report. And
well, I refer to them as purchased businesses.
Yeah, that's a good term.
Purchased businesses. Okay. All right, that's helpful, because all our fines and things go around contact types. So we need a separate contact type for these people, so that we can create separate reports for them.
Okay. So we want to have Cy add that, Peter.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll make a note.
And have Cy talk to Greg, because Greg has 3 identifiers, but then he has subcategories under his identifiers. He has some kind of other structure on this side that is coded that may coincide with what Cy can, kind of mirror. Because Greg kind of helped us on this side reporting.
All right. See, I mean, these are the kind of things, I mean, it was taking time, but these are the kind of things we need to nip in the bud, because otherwise, when you go live, it's like, all of a sudden you bring these things up. So, the more we can just flush out all these exceptions or finer distinctions now, the more smoother the transition's going to be.
Right. If you would look at our customer list now, or look at our customer page, it would say, what is this? What is this? And like I said last week, on the FileMaker side, we nearly don't have the same fields in Monarch and FileMaker. So
I see.
We're going to need to be able to, get some of this stuff married together.
Right. Well, that's helpful, Don. So now that we're bringing this up, if you could think it through, if you have any other suggestions or things that we should look at, that would be helpful.
Right. And even on the vendor side, like you said, the remit to didn't matter because you have a remit to on your side. So.
All right. All right. Well, sorry to sidetrack you, Peter, but I just feel like those are important.
All right. So,
details.
no, I agree. And so as you can see, I've let the video run a little bit here. You can see now that we added those customers, you can see there's money in the pipeline. That is when they pay those bills, then the commissions will jump over to the right. And then you can also enter in here payments that were made to that person you bought the business from, so that you can keep track of that as well. And it works exactly the same way as the salesperson side, where you enter the payments and then you have the commissions that are payable based on the whole invoice being paid. And then you can keep track of where's my balance with these different.
That would be when I would cut him a check, say quarterly. I would add that in there so that it would lower the liability.
Whatever your balance was, whatever you write that check, you put it in there, and then it should zero them out. So before you wrote that check, it would give you the balance that you would need to cut the check for right before you cut the check.
And that's printable to have backup for?
Again, you're getting ahead of the movie. We have another screen that lets you print reports. But this is how that's how it's set up. Yeah. Okay. So you don't have to do it on a one-off basis. We're going to give you a report that you can change your dates, and then based on the dates that you select, you can see where people stood.
Okay.
So that way,
perfect.
So that's going to be more useful when you have a particular cutoff. Otherwise, as soon as you have a change in activity, that sort of real-time indicator of where that person is at that moment may not be helpful if you have a particular cutoff date for a report. So we're just going through that example again of paying off an invoice, so you can see how it impacts in this other parallel process. So let's just go ahead and do that, and it will be back to the other screen. So just in the normal course of receiving money from your clients, these balances as far as what's payable to either salespeople or people who sold you business, we're keeping track of that in real time, as opposed to what you've had to do now, which is Jerry had to go back and keep a subledger spreadsheet of what happened every quarter. This is now being kept track of as you do your work. And the only thing you have to do is mark in there, oh, I paid this guy so certain amount of money. So now you can see that commission amount showed up, and now you can see that his balance has changed.
I'm on a conference call. What is the question? All right, I'll open it.
Okay. Okay, so this section here, I'm just kind of jumping ahead here. is in the posting dashboard, we added a section at the bottom which is issue commissions. This lets you go ahead and set up a date range that you want to create a commission report for, and we'll be creating a commission report that's going to be generated based on the date range that you pick, but it's going to be pulling from that data source that I've been showing you, right? So you can have a cutoff point to say, oh, here's where you were on this day.
Okay.
Excuse me, I need to interrupt for just a minute. I have a funeral I have to go to. I was assuming we'd be done at 1 o'clock. It's 20 after, and I literally have to be someplace relatively soon. So, Don, I'm assuming you can carry the ball forward, but I'm afraid I have to take my leave of you.
Okay. All right. We'll see you.
Can I interject, Jerry? I just wanted, I was going to bring up the famous subject of another invoice with you. We've been
Sure,
2 months.
We should pay it, work it out with Don, and we'll take care of it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Very
Jerry.
well.
All right.
Thank you, and sorry for your loss.
Yes.
All right.
Condolences on the loss.
All right, I'm cutting off. Good luck with the continuing.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
Okay.
And so that's really all I had today. That's basically this right here is we're still buttoning this up, but this will be where we generate the commission reports from, so you can have something to go through and figure out what checks you need to cut at the end of a quarter or whatever period you select.
Okay.
I think the only thing we're going to cover today was going to be we're using a project management tool that we want to review, but I'd like to do it when Jerry's here as well, because it involves both of you, and Greg's not here either, and it involves him. So
right.
We'll wait till next week's meeting to do that.
Okay. Do you think that's something we should try to throw in sooner?
Well, we're already using it, and it's already
okay.
in process on our side. And really, the only thing in connecting you guys to it is going to be to make it much easier for the people on your staff that are testing to be able to go in and flag that they've tested it and put any feedback in. And then you also be able to see the complete workflow of everybody that, from the coding of each process to the testing, who's tested it. And then we've added where we can add your staff member, and then a place for Greg to test, and then a place for you and Jerry, depending on who on the team wants to be able to go in and test these processes. But it keeps everything nice and buttoned up and together. It's not going to be difficult to wait till next week to do it. It's not stopping anything. Everything's continuing forward. But it'll make it easier to just show everybody at once. And then once I've shown everybody on the team, then we're going to invite all of your you guys and everybody who you want to be a part of it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Greg is today. He answered last night, which, I'm not sure on that billing side if a lot of that stuff was maybe something he needed to code to get fixed with Cy. So it's not like him that he didn't even answer my text. So
he may have been
out of the water.
I think he may be getting, anxiety coming back with knowing what he has on his plate, which is always not fun.
No, it's not fun. That's true.
No, I think that part is always a little frustrating coming back from a trip.